right, how's it going, everybody? We're here for our Philippine Ruby users group. We got Joe Masilotti on, and Joe is calling in from Portland and hot off of RailsConf. He's one of the main developers of Hotwire Native. So I think some of you have seen the demo app that I've done using that, and I've been kind of beating the drum on that stuff for more than a year now. So had a bit of correspondence back and forth with Joe, and he was kind enough to spend some time with us to chat about how things are going and where things are heading and all that good stuff. So good evening, good morning, Joe.
Yeah, yeah. Good morning. Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to chat with everyone that's listening to this, watching this. Sorry I couldn't make it live, but I think we figured it out that it was going to be 3 a.m. or something for me if we did it live,
Yeah.
and with two little boys that on a school night that would just that wasn't going to swing it. So I'm more than happy to do this recording and yeah, answer questions and then talk about Hotwire Native.
Yeah, the West Coast is the most brutal time zone to try and coordinate with from out
Yeah,
here.
I hear you.
But that's all right. So how long you been developing software now?
Ooh, 2010, I guess I started right out of college. Maybe even, I guess, a little bit before that. I was doing, funny story. Senior year of college, I got started writing an Android app on my own, and it ended up
Okay.
becoming my kind of like my quote thesis for graduation. I didn't major in computer science, but I minored, and there was always with a minor at my school, you had to present something at the end of your minor to kind of prove what you've learned instead of just taking classes.
Yeah, sort
And
of
I
a
ended up
capstone
building an
sort of
app.
deal.
Yeah, so I ended up building an app on my own for Android. Oh man, this was like before Android had this was hardware, physical hardware keyboards on Android and physical back buttons.
All
Like this
right.
was like way back, Java. And I built this little tiny app that got me super interested in mobile development. And then I did web for a little while and then I found iOS at a job and was like, oh yeah, this is for me. And then Rails came out and I was like, oh wait, hold on. Rails is for me. And then maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago at this point, Hotwire Native was, TurboLinks native at the time. I got early access to it from my employer and was like, oh wait, this marriages my skill two of my biggest skill sets, Ruby on Rails and iOS slash Android development. So it's been a really fun journey going from kind of like full circle, like starting with Android, going web, going iOS, and then combining them all, which is where I find myself today.
Jumping between languages, between environments,
Hmm.
just a lot of context shifting with this stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. What keeps you going with the Rails? Like having just come out of the Rails conf and everything, like how do you like what's kind of been like one of the big things that sort of kept you with the community?
The community, the community is always just going to a conference or a meetup and talking with people and getting excited about building stuff. Like I left RailsConf ended on a Thursday, I think. I gave my workshop on a Wednesday and Saturday, no, not even Saturday. The day after on the plane ride home, I was coding up something fresh. Like
Right.
like Rails new. And I had big plans for it, still do. iOS app, Android app are coming for it. And that just energy from the conferences is why I stay in the like involved in the community and just how everyone is so helpful with each other. But I'll be honest, if there was no community, I would still be writing Rails and I would still be writing Ruby. Like you said, I bounce around a lot between contexts and languages, and if I could write everything in Ruby, I 100% would. Like it is so much better still than every other language I've ever worked with. And there have been a few now that Ruby and then slapping Rails on top of it to get a website going is just this super productive hack that I feel like more folks need to know about. For me, honestly, I'm using Bootstrap directly from the CDN. I'm using Bootstrap icons. Like I'm not even customizing Sass. I'm using no build. I am just how quickly can I go from Rails new to render deploy or git push to get something on production, and it's fast now. It's like 24 hours from the time I'm thinking of something to the time I have a live website, and that's not the same with a lot of other frameworks.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair to say. You don't have the same. I can't remember who said it, but I really enjoyed the term yak shaving. All that configuration and whatnot that comes with a lot of the other that don't do the convention over configuration kind of approach.
Hmm. Yeah, even
So
down to like I'm on
go ahead.
render, right?
Yeah,
Because I haven't spent the time to learn Kamal yet. And render gives you non-ephemeral disk storage. So cool. I just have a SQLite database. And by a SQLite database, it means just I have a file on my server,
right.
and that's hosts everything. And there's more than one file. There's the queue database, there's the actual application database, there's the polling database, and all of those were just default with Rails. It's kind of wild. I made a single character change to my database.yaml to mount the storage at the root directory instead of under the Rails directory, and told render where that was, and boom, I have three databases. And it's like, that's wild. That's even better than the Heroku story back in the day when you had add a Postgres instance. So I'm just really, Rails 8 has been really exciting for me.
Yeah, cool. So you're using the solid cache and all of that stuff on database as well, huh?
Yeah, yeah, solid queue, solid like SQLite database. I don't think I'm technically using the cache at all, but I have a cache database because it's just a file. Like, why not?
Right.
And if I ever need to do any caching, I can just slap that on with, Rails.cache or whatever, and it'll all just go to the same database, which is pretty awesome. So I have I think 5 gigs set aside on render, and if I ever hit that limit, I can just bump it up to 10 or bump it up to 20, and it's all just sitting there waiting for me to fill it, essentially. I think I'm at 0.25% right now, so I'm not too worried.
Yeah, okay, cool. You got lots of room. I've
Hmm.
got we got one of the I've been tutoring one of the high school students here, an IT student, and going through Ayush's book, and he's been learning render. So it'll be good for him to hear that like the pros are using it for this stuff for their
Yeah,
project.
I've been Heroku my whole development life. That's what I learned on. That's what works, right? And then I wanted to try SQLite, and it just doesn't work on Heroku because you get only ephemeral storage, right? Like nothing persists between reboots. So I gave Render a try, and I'm paying $25 a month for like a professional grade quote dyno with enough storage to last me for many, many years for this app. And yeah, I'm building, a side project, pet app or whatever, but I don't see a problem with this scaling, which is kind of wild.
Yeah, nice. I've seen the direction that it's heading. I haven't tried a huge amount of it myself. I did kind of like migrate a Postgres over cache, well, a cache over to the solid cache at one of our previous meetups, and got that working, which is a nice little project. But I haven't done
Yeah,
anything in production yet.
nice.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so for my next question, I think Joe has prepared an app that he can do a bit of a walkthrough, and so we're gonna use that as a chance to give a little bit of a tour under the hood of Hotwire Native and how the web views work and stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just going to preempt. You could, as you're getting this kind of set up and introducing what you is, I want to ask you, like for devs or companies who are thinking about getting into the Hotwire native world, what would you say is like the biggest pro and biggest con of the library today?
Yeah. The biggest pro is that at the end of the day, it's rendering a web view wrapped inside some native, fanciness. So maybe that's a native tab bar or push notifications. But what that means is that you make a change to your Rails server, your iOS and your Android app get those changes as soon as the user clicks the next page or refreshes the page or launches the app. Like if you're doing, okay, we just launched a brand new feature. If we add a button to a screen, the iOS and the Android app now have those new features. No App Store review, no resubmission, no new Kotlin or Swift code. You are just rendering what is ever served on your Rails server. So adding new features and fixing bugs is as simple as just doing normal Ruby on Rails development. And that's wild because it drops the maintenance cost of these apps by an order of magnitude.
Yeah.
And it means that you can just continue to add features and fix bugs where you're comfortable in the Rails code base. And until you actually get involved with the native stuff, do you need to even worry about doing App Store updates? I think that's by far the biggest advantage. The biggest disadvantage to me is that you have to really be running the Rails front end stack. Like you really have to be running Hotwire web to get the best benefit, the most benefit out of this. If you have a React front end and you're serving like Rails API requests, Hotwire Native is not going to give you much benefit. You probably will get more benefit out of going React Native or Expo or something because you're going to have to recreate those front end HTML elements anyway. So
Right.
if you've stuck with Rails and you're using Hotwire, you're in a really good spot. But if you have a React front end, like probably should stick in the React ecosystem and go React Native.
Yeah, cool. I know Noel Rappin with his pragmatic programmer book, like on front end, he kind of like showed how to build a similar set of features in both.
Mm,
And I think like overall you end up doing less code and stuff with Hotwire to do the
yeah,
same thing. You're dealing with a less like state management kind of things, which
yeah,
is nice as well. But I think you're yeah, definitely in a case where you've already got React happening. It's a fairly big change to like try and rip that out and rewrite it, and then you're
yeah,
like dealing with like, I mean, with React you're dealing with two languages anyway, but I don't know, somehow it's like I mean, it's got its own learning curve, so
yeah.
put it that way.
Agreed.
So yeah,
I
when you're
just
ready, have at her.
so what I'm going to show is my whole desktop here. Um, so when I left Ruby RailsConf, I was super excited to just build this thing that helped me reconnect with friends that I had met. At the conference, everyone had a QR code on their badge, and when you scanned it, it added that contact to your address book. And I was just like, that was a little too much for me. Like I just met you. I don't need your phone number. I just want to maybe send you a Twitter DM or, follow you on GitHub or whatever. So that's where Ruby Friends comes in. It is a website to, let me show you the real one. This is my profile on Ruby Friends, and it's essentially a way to show, you'd show this on your phone and be like, hey, this is me. Do you want to add me as a friend? And then someone can scan that QR code, it goes to your page, and they can add you as a friend. And then they have this list of everyone that they met at the conference. So these are all the folks that I met either for the first time or the second time at RailsConf this year, and the stuff that we talked about, or some notes about why I want to be friends with them. That's the core of it. And the best part about this is it works really well for a Hotwire native app. So let's do this. So this is just rendering out, like we saw before, that web view. Here we have my profile that's coming from the local host instance. I have those same type of interactions where I can share my profile, but I also have my tabs at the bottom. And then, of course, push notifications because this is an iOS app and we get access to that stuff now. At a very high level, we are working with a really kind of bare bones iOS app here, or a bare bones Hotwire native app. We have our app delegate here, which just kind of does some configuration. We have a path configuration here, which tells the app certain screens to present modally. So if you notice, if I go to my profile and I click share, this gets presented as a native modal, sliding up from the bottom, versus on the web, when I click that share button, it gets presented as a bootstrap modal. So just a little improvement there to make the app feel a little bit more like a native app is where we're presenting this as a native modal instead of this web-based bootstrap modal.
But you could just roll it out and have that original modal in, and like it will be there when you first launch the app, right? And like
Yeah,
the fact that you added
great
that
question.
modal was something that you did to make it, but actually you could have been fully functioning even before that.
Yep, let's comment out the path configuration loading. So now we have no path configuration, we have no custom routing involved. And if I click that share my profile, it just pushes that new screen onto the stack, right? And that's happening because in the profile show page, I'm actually saying, hey, if we're in the app, don't present it as a modal. So let's just do this. This is some custom logic that I have. And if I go back here, now we're getting it as the modal that we saw on the web. So what's actually happening under the hood is that I'm saying, here's the button, wire up the modal data attributes for Bootstrap to present it as a modal. When I turn app false, it says, hey, if you're running the Hotwire native app, don't present it as a modal because I want to catch it and do the pushing or the presenting. From in my scene controller, this is kind of the core of the app. This is what's getting launched. This is something that I've done for the first time that I really like. So if you notice, the app has here, if I sign out, sign out is broken right now. So I can't sign out. But I will have to fix that after this call. What happens when we sign out is I will uninstall the app to sign out. Come on.
I'll just while you're doing that, I'll show on my this I don't know. Let's see if I can make that.
Yeah.
So this here, this log out button here is rendered natively.
Nice.
But this is still hard. This is our production app. I haven't actually migrated over to Hotwire native yet, so this is still running on Turbo native. I'll do that at some point soon, I think.
Gotcha. Yeah. So when you're not signed in, you'll notice at the bottom we don't have our tabs, right? But when we do sign in, we get our tab bar with our 3 different tabs. So the way that this is working is when the app first launches, we launch this unauthenticated navigator, and we set that to the root view controller of the window. Then we have this component called an authentication component that listens in from the server. And it says, hey, when we receive this message that they are signed in, set the launch path to their profile URL. That then fires a notification, a local notification in the code to fire did sign in, which the scene controller, back where we were before, then swaps out the root view controller for a tab bar controller. So the benefit of this is that the iOS app doesn't actually know that the user is signed in. The Rails server is sending the message, hey, the user just signed in. You can now show that tab bar, right? And we do that through a bridge component here. This bridge component is a subclass of our stimulus controller, and we wire that up to say, hey, the user just signed in, match this up, and send them that special URL to know that they're signed in on Connect there. I'm experimenting with this technique. It's not something that I've used in client apps before. I'm trying to see if I can break it, but I haven't been able to yet. And so far, I'm really excited about how it works because we get this awesome experience where we have like an unauthenticated scenario and then this authenticated scenario where we have tabs across the bottom. And in the future, these tabs could technically be customized. If we're getting the path over the wire, why not get the 3 tabs over the wire as well, and then start customizing the tabs based on who is signed in. So maybe as an admin, I have a 4th tab that says admin or something, and it goes to, rubyfriends.app/admin, which goes to my admin interface, something
Yeah, I
like that.
saw there was a discussion about that in the discussions on the GitHub repo for the thing. There's like, a guy was inquiring about that, and some people are trying different things.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about because William Kennedy talked about refreshing the tabs after signing in. It's a discussion 133 if anyone wants to check that out. And then William Kennedy comes down here and talks about having a refresh app path, and then when that gets triggered, to essentially reload all of the tabs. So here he's only using a single root view controller, that tab bar controller, and he's saying, "Oh, someone signed in, refresh all the tabs." The approach that I'm taking takes this another step further and has no tab bar or tab bar. And that's the trigger there. So it's a little bit different. It's more of a product decision, right? Like these tabs don't make any sense if you're not signed in because they would just say, hey, you need to sign in. So I want like a logged out experience and a logged in experience.
Right.
And that's why I went this route. But yeah, this is a great resource from William uh, and he
Well,
also has the
it's really
video.
like if you can do it for one, you can do it for more than one. Like if you
Yeah,
had different user classes, like you said with the admin, you could just have like the different lists for them. Um,
exactly. Exactly.
Perhaps you would even do like I don't know, does that make something like that make sense in the root configurations, you think? Or because I know I don't remember the repo. It wasn't for Hotwire Native, but it was this other group that was also doing sort of like web view sort of stuff, and they were going real like taking the whole like no changes in the app code to like a way crazy, like this really crazy level of like
Yeah.
everything is like refreshed from the web server.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, yeah, they were going I mean I was like I saw it a couple years ago, so I don't remember the details or who it
Yeah.
was, but I know that that's like a direction that some like really high powered teams are going in, where like it's all just coming off the web server.
Yeah. I think that there are benefits to that, like having extremely little native code. Um, I don't love that approach just because, excuse me, I like having some native components, but I'm also, have the native experience, right?
Mhm.
And I think that for me, and what I usually recommend to my clients when I'm working with them is building out super generic bridge components. So here we have this thing called a button component. And what it does is it adds a button to the top right of the screen. Like this is a native button, just like you had your sign out button that presents a modal, right? But
Yeah.
this, once we have this code in the app, we can actually change that button by opening up the friends index page. Like, let's say here we wanted to say the bridge iOS image. We wanted to call this, let's open up our SF symbols here. This is where the
Okay, so
images are
you're in a
coming
view
from.
right now.
Yeah, so I'm in the friends index view on the Rails server, right? So
Right.
if I were to say, hello, and I refresh this page, there's my text, right? But here is the data attributes that add that button to Hotwire native apps. Here's the bridge iOS image is a plus sign. If I instead want to make it this share button, square and arrow up, I now have that as the button. And
Yeah, you're just
that's a native
referencing the
control.
name of the icon, right? The like the name
Exactly.
of the icon as it exists in the Apple, in
Exactly.
the Apple device. Yeah.
And there's 6,404 symbols to choose from. Like you will most likely find something you need in here. Uh, but what I just did is really powerful because I changed the native button without any iOS changes. I didn't have to deploy. All I had to do was refresh the page and I got the new update. But I also, that means that I can add it to existing pages, right? So this is the profile show page. So if I go to profile show, I can copy this DOM. I can just throw this up at the top here, and Now when I refresh this page, we have a native button on a new page, just like that. And we didn't have to write any more native code to have a button on a brand new page. So we're now customizing our, we'd probably want to hide this in Hotwire native, just so we don't see the button twice, because we're seeing it there. So now, we're only seeing the native button here. But this is super powerful because we have a little bit of iOS code, a little bit of Android code, and then we can just drop these native components all over our app to make it feel more native without doing any App Store updates.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do a lot. And like one of your previous videos kind of tipped me off to this little just to help me to understand like just how like the stimulus part of it and how little you need. That was what inspired me to try and like make a Hotwire native app work on like a static site. Which is what
Yeah.
like this demo app is pulling the HTML and JavaScript off of a Jekyll site.
Oh,
So I
cool.
just made like a
Yeah.
little pilot player and then use stimulus to like change the episodes and stuff. So then if you see this little trash can here,
Yeah.
will dynamically render either download or don't download based on whether the episode is already saved to the device. So
Nice.
I had to ping you to kind of help me figure out the messaging in order for this basically to check the database and then decide which icon is going to show. But that's still within the web view. That's the HTML.
Right.
That's the icon is sitting within the web view there. So that
Yeah.
it's like kind of like the information's going the other direction from the example
Yeah.
that you just gave, but it still happens, and there's no Rails involved. There's no database, none of that kind of stuff. So
Exactly.
just,
Exactly. Yeah, and you bring up a good point about data going the other way here. If I go to this, find a Ruby friend thing, and I go to click scan a QR code, we can't do it on the simulator, but this would pop open a QR code scanner on a physical device,
sure.
camera and all. And as soon as it recognizes a URL that is a Ruby Friends profile URL, it will automatically push that screen onto the stack. And that is a feature that we can't do on the web. Like we can't scan QR codes and see what URL it is and visit pages. So we have this QR code scanner component that looks for QR codes using the native SDK of a data scanner thing. Like this is from Apple directly. And when it finds a URL and it is an HTTP or an HTTPS URL, it replies back to Stimulus and says, hey, I found this URL, right? So now Stimulus is in charge of the logic. So we have our QR code scanner thing, and it says, hey, we got this data back, this message data. Is it the same host? And is it a profile URL? Okay, cool. Stop scanning and visit that URL. So we now have super generic. It's just a QR code scanner. It'll scan every single QR code that is a URL and send it back to our stimulus controller. If I ever decide that profiles live at, no more slash profiles, it's like slash me or slash dev something, I just change it here in my stimulus and then deploy my Rails code. The iOS app, the Android app in the future doesn't have to know anything of the application logic. It's just like, I'm scanning QR codes. You tell me when I'm done. I'm scanning. Okay, I'm done. Cool. Dismiss. Visit this page. And that's where you can start to get this like a pretty like complicated flow, but all your logic exists on your server, which is where you want it to be.
Right. Yeah. You've got the cleaner, smoother user experience of being native, but then the control and the changeability and everything is still you're not in the app store going through revision cycles and all of that stuff in the same way.
Exactly. Like what I just said, if I
versions,
changed
like
this,
the user needs to
yeah,
update their version or whatever, like that kind of stuff takes takes a lot more, like just a lot more planning, a lot more sort of capacity, engineering capacity and stuff.
if this logic lived in the iOS app, and I decided to change the profile URLs. Let's just say like this looks for four alphanumeric characters. Let's say profiles now actually have five alphanumeric characters because I ran out of room, at four.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
or another you decided to do an integration with another app, and like now you're kind of like handling this other set of stuff coming in.
Yeah,
Something like
that
that.
would require a whole new release. It would mean that people, until they release, they wouldn't have access to that feature. Well, I can just make this change, deploy my Rails code, because this is just the stimulus controller, and boom, everyone gets the new feature for free, and I don't even have to announce it because there's no App Store update.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's it's a very lightweight way of going. I mean, lightweight has its pros and cons, of course,
Yeah,
but yeah, like that aspect is kind of like right in the zone of where this stuff becomes nice to work with and flexible um, yeah,
yeah.
I think
So
a lot of people in the Rails community are like having that yeah, the flexibility and that is just a big part of what what people are looking for from Rails, I think, when they're doing this stuff.
exactly. Yeah. And I took the time, this is a bridgecomponents.dev. These are a huge collection of free and paid components that you can just copy paste into your Hotwire native app. So, we talked about the button component. Here's just all the code for the button component, the Kotlin file, the Swift file, the JavaScript controller. You just take these, you copy this, you drop it into your app, and you have full access and instructions on how to do it. So remember that code we just talked about? Here's how, you know, you could add a button to your app in the future by just copying and pasting this. And some of these are paid, like the QR code scanner. This is a paid one. It's a one-time fee though forever. But there are a
Hmm.
lot of free ones here. Vibrating the device, a native menu drop down, review prompts. There's 16 something components, I think, that are
Oh,
all just drag and drop essentially into your app and start using those.
yeah, very nice.
Just like this one. The
Um,
button component is directly copy pasted from my website.
and you had the theme and those aren't components per se, but it's like drop in code. Or do you like is that oh that is it's like the toggle but back and forth or I
Yeah, so
see.
this
Okay.
lets you manually toggle the system theme to light between light and dark. And there's
Hmm.
also code to wire it up to set the theme from your web theme. So you could actually force the user into their app into dark mode if your like user preferences say they want to use dark mode on the web by just dropping in this HTML.
And in your book, you had a compose component section where you showed how to incorporate that in. Are you working with a lot of Jetpack Compose when you're doing Android?
Yeah, so Compose is, Swift UI equivalent on iOS. The times that I'm touching those frameworks are when we're building out fully native screens. So these are
Right.
what we all just talked about are kind of like JavaScript sprinkles. They're native sprinkles. They're a button, they're a component or whatever. Um, when we're talking about fully native stuff, we have a map view or a native list view or offline access that's cached. Then we're talking about fully native screens, API endpoints, caching, and then you're using Swift UI or Compose. I'd say that a quarter of the apps that I build for clients end up using anything like that. They usually can get by with just some uh, bridge component stuff to get their features that they need. But I have built some stuff mostly around mapping. Someone wanted a native screen to view their tickets to events that had to work offline. So we cached that data and then displayed it every time the app launched without internet access. And then some folks just want native authentication, native sign-in because they want that level of fidelity. So it's not every app that I get to use fully native screens, but when you do, yeah, you notice them.
Yeah, definitely. the offline is the real rub. That's like the in a lot of cases, the reason people will start to go native is the offline, the location. Location often has some kind of offline component, not necessarily,
Yeah.
but often. And if you're moving around, then do you have connectivity and all that stuff? So
Yeah.
how do
There's
you
a
like? Could you kind of describe how like there's a Rails way, there's like a convention over configuration. Would you like is there a way you could kind of describe like how the team is thinking about that whole subject?
mhm. The Hotwire native convention over configuration is do absolutely everything you can in Rails, ERB, and Stimulus, and only drop down to native when you absolutely have to. And I consider the bridge components a nice gap between those, between a, HTML screen with native elements and a fully native screen. When you go fully native, it might look and feel great, but your maintenance burden has increased dramatically. So anytime you need to fix a bug, let's say you have a list, like a feed, and you have two different types of feed items, right? Let's say you want to add a third type and it has a different rendering layout. That's a new App Store release. That's a new API endpoint. That's making sure your old apps are back or or backwards compatible with the new API, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. If you were just to build that screen on the web, you don't have to worry about that because everything is kept in sync. It's making a request, it's rendering HTML. So I like to really keep everything on the web unless you really, really need the native features for some reason. And that need is getting pushed further and further away as we build these more advanced bridge components. Like QR code scanning used to be its own screen. That's how I recommended doing QR code scanning. You would build it out fully natively. Now, you can just drop it into your app with a bridge component and add a button, and you have QR code scanning with the full native capabilities that you had if you built it out natively. And I think I'm pushing us towards having a bridge component for everything, pretty much, because it means that once it's in your app, once the code base is aware of those native implementations, your Rails developers are just firing on all cylinders and getting more native stuff without having to do releases and maintenance updates.
You see that being doable with local storage?
Yeah, so I experimented a little bit with offline stuff, and I did get a proof of concept working for iOS and offline access in Hotwire Native last week. It was very proof of concept. It only worked on like one page or two pages, and I got a bunch of folks emailing me and saying that they went down this route and they ran into problems because of this reason and these edge cases. So I'm talking with Rosa from 37 Signals, she's working on caching at the Hotwire web level, at like, doing a manifest, doing a background service worker, all that stuff. If we can get caching built into an offline access built into Hotwire web, we're hoping that the adapter for iOS and Android for Hotwire native won't be too far past that because we can take advantage of all of the service worker stuff that we're doing on the web already. But right
That's
now
sort of
it's
the batteries included PWA stuff that's shipping with Rails 8 now. I is that right?
exactly, yeah. Like imagine if the batteries included PWA stuff also just had offline access for server workers for read-only access to every page you visit out of the box. Right? Like that's huge. And then if we can make that work with Hotwire Native, now we have full caching. If you visit any page with Hotwire Native, you just get an offline cached version of it. And if we start to get there, then we can start to worry about, okay, they submitted a form without internet access. How do we save that and submit when they're back online? Can we do that natively? It opens up a lot of doors once we have the framework to build around. And right now, it is just you have to write the code in JavaScript completely manually, and it's very error prone and it's not very Railsy. So Rosa is giving a talk at Rails World on this topic. It's so, in R&D right now that she doesn't even know what the talk title is going to be. So, I'm excited. I'm very excited to go to that. It is unfortunately the talk right before my talk. So I'm probably going to have to duck out early to prepare for mine, but it is the talk that I'm most excited about at Rails World this year.
Well, and when's Rails World?
First week of September.
First week of September. Cool.
So very soon.
Yeah, coming up quick. That's a big trip for us over here. But that's okay.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
I don't know if you noticed, I put a GitHub discussion up today. Finally, I know you suggested a while ago, but
Yeah.
talking about the view model stuff. Did you have a look at that by chance?
Yeah, I saw it. I still need to dive into the Kotlin multi-platform stuff and figure out like where it best fits. What I think that Jay will be the better person to just start looking at that stuff because he's doing more of the Android and is more familiar with Kotlin. But from what you proposed of having like why the view model isn't accessible or we can't have access to it feels like a problem we should be able to solve.
Right.
Whether that's even if it's just exposing another hook or a new, thing to extend or whatever. But again, I'm not the Kotlin expert, Jay is. So
Sure.
I'm
I
going to
saw
defer
that
to
you
him.
guys have a that there is like a view model that's handling the sessions already.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the suggestions that I got, because when you're doing a Kotlin multi-platform, or sorry, composed multi-platform code, then
Yeah.
you'll have your Android and your iOS will be like 10% of the code, and the rest of it will
Yeah.
be in common. Like obviously, the more you
Right.
can get in the common code base, the amount of infrastructure and resources you need to maintain and everything.
Definitely.
So what they end up doing is just having a single app entry point that both apps access, and even a desktop
Mm-hmm.
version if you go that way.
Mm.
And so that we don't like with the separate libraries the way they are right now. It's not like that, of course. So I've kind of I erred when I was choosing which one do I want to be driving the navigation. I erred towards the Hotwire side for this one. And so that's where I'm kind of now at the place of, okay, where do those screens get spun up? Where does the view model actually get
Mm-hmm.
instantiated? Because that's the point. You can generate a view model from the activity, but you need to be able to pass it in. And right now the navigation, there's like, I don't see where, because it's all happening under the hood. And right
Yeah.
now, if I go to try and do like a Hotwire fragment or a Hotwire web
Right.
fragment, they don't take arguments. So I've got to fork the
Mm.
library if I'm going to like extend it in order for that to be able to take arguments. But if you
Right.
could take an
Right.
arguments, you can just pass the view model in that way, which would be a quick way to do it. But
Yeah.
I mean, this
Yeah.
is all pretty early conversation. So I mean, yeah, I'm sure it'll take a little. I'm sure, like if Jay is a Kotlin guy, then I wouldn't consider myself a Kotlin guy. I've just kind of been following tutorials and banging stuff together. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Same.
So, but yeah, like I don't know. It's working. It's just got that split personality right now between the two screens. So you can get
Yeah.
it talking from both screens at the same time.
Right. Right. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, but having shared state, like there's a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of use cases across a lot of apps where shared state across screens is going to be a thing. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely.
yeah,
Definitely.
coming down the pipe. But yeah, I think and if the database could get instantiated in common code for both,
Mm-hmm.
that would just be such a yeah, it would just take so much of the burden away from or it would just be so that much less having to do two separate things if you were going to go for that kind of feature. And if that feature
Right.
ended up being something that you could just sort of generate in the way that you do
Yeah.
an install from Tailwind or whatever, and you've just
Mm-hmm.
got it. I mean, that would sort of imply that you've got your Android and your iOS as like sub projects of your Rails project or something. But if you could do that, that would be pretty slick, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that There is a Hotwire native generator right now. It's not an official one. I can't remember the URL for it, but it does generate like an iOS scaffold and an Android scaffold. Um, the thing that I'm like, yeah, we have a Rails generator right now. Sure, Rails new with a bunch of options. The demo app is so good at like a starting point, but it is hard to customize to your own branding and stuff. So having even a generator for non multi Kotlin multi-platform is, I think, something that we are probably gonna build. Like I want that, right? I don't want to have to do new Xcode project, add the dependency, blah 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 every single time. I want to be able to say Rails new Hotwire, Rails G Hotwire, iOS or something, and pass it a name. So I'll be curious if that ends up living in Rails, if that ends up living in the individual repos, because there's a lot of like dependency management now that we're talking about. Because to build an iOS app or to generate an iOS an Xcode project, you need to have the Swift build chain. You need to have the plist manager, and that's not a dependency on iOS or for Rails right now. But for Android, you know, if we're just doing Java, maybe that's possible without using Kotlin, and we just do the Java one. I don't know. Something to think about for sure.
Well, if you're doing anything with Kotlin, if you're doing anything multi-platform, you have to use Kotlin libraries. You can't use Java. If it's Java, it won't be like it won't build. So that's
Yeah, but we
just so
can
you know.
interact with Android Studio with Java directly. So we could have the generator say, okay, Android Studio, build a new project in Kotlin, right?
Mm.
And it would just be generating the files for us. But then as soon as Android Studio builds a project, it needs to sync with Gradle. So that means it would need Kotlin anyway. So like we're back where we started. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's a tough question.
Yeah, and that world changes so fast too. Like that,
Hmm.
you really gotta be like on the ball, following how these things are. Especially like
Very
I
true.
think like Kotlin Compose multi-platform, especially like Kotlin
Yeah.
multi-platform's been around for a while, but now the Compose is in with like the UI being shared.
Yeah.
That's really this year. This year
Hmm.
that it's really they're really starting to say, okay, this is going live, this is going mainstream now. So there's
Yeah.
going to be a
Yeah.
lot of changes. All this like dependency injection stuff that people who do lots of testing in Rails will be familiar with
Hmm.
is you're taking on quite a bit more when you're getting into like the mobile environment, when you're doing the same thing, but you
Yeah.
just like when you're dealing with like mobile environments, it's
Yeah.
a lot of stuff that you
Definitely.
got to learn. So um, but I mean, if that's the way you're going, if that's the way your future features are pulling you, then that's the way they're pulling you. So,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
so. Um, cool. Well, I guess if you got any other events coming up, or you want to give a bit of a rundown about your book and what readers could get out of the book, then
Yeah.
I think we still got one discount code that we can throw towards the members. So I'll see who we'll do that this time around as well. But yeah, why don't you give a bit of
Awesome.
a rundown of the book?
Yeah, so I wrote Hotwire Native for Rails developers, and it's a book with pragmatic programmers that is actually done. It is final edits have been done. It's in layout right now. So the physical copy will be ready in the next couple of weeks, which you can buy from pragprog.com or even Amazon. But the digital version, you can use that discount code for the digital version. And what it does is it teaches you how to build iOS and Android apps with Hotwire Native, assuming you only know Ruby on Rails and Stimulus. So you don't have to have any iOS or any Android experience. I walk you through every single step of getting the project started, all the way to getting it into the App Store or Google Play. Again, with no assumptions of native knowledge or anything. So it's a really good place to get started if you're like curious about hotwire native, if you don't understand how all the pieces work. And it's technically like for beginners, but it does go pretty advanced. Like we talk about push notifications, we build our own bridge component, we do authenticated API requests, and each chapter builds on the last to then have a publishable app at the end of it that you can be proud of. It's the technique that I follow for building all my apps, kind of distilled into a short 250 pages.
Yeah, yeah, I found it to be very uh like you can move through it quite nicely. Like the getting through, like, I mean, it wasn't my first time, so I don't have that point of reference, but I found that I was able to get it through it quite efficiently.
Hmm.
And that's great for the amount of stuff that you're taking on with that. So I think you did
Nice.
it turned out quite well. Congrats on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm gonna let you go now. The line that we use at Paglalayag is Tule Tule Long. It's kind of like keep going. So I'll
Okay,
send you
nice.
off with that. Thanks a lot for your
Great.
time. And
Thanks for having
yeah,
me. This was
maybe.
awesome. And my website, masilotti.com. You can see my name, I think, right there, or maybe right there, depending on if this is mirrored or
Yep.
not. Has my newsletter, a link to the book, link to the bridge components. It's all there. My email address, if you have questions, shoot me an email. Happy to help and figure out your next mobile app.
All right. Very good. Thanks a
Great
lot.
talking.
Take care.
Yeah.
Yeah. Till next time.
B-
Bye bye.
Bye.